As with bikes, Surtees had to go to Europe for competitive four-wheeled machinery in the 60s. But in this unique compression of history, John Surtees' cars and those of his contemporaries pack the Brands Hatch pit lane on the second day. And, as with bikes, some friends only return as immortal names.
Well, I've been introduced to cars by Mike Hawthorne, and then Reg Parnell took me down to Goodwood with the Aston Martin, the DBR1, which is here today. And then the Vanwall, Tony Vanderwell, said, no, you can't drive that rubbish, you've got to drive one of my cars. So he turned up with a Vanwall. And so I did a lot of laps at Goodwood just to find out whether I liked it. And in fact, I tried it, and I thought, this can be fun.
Well, I first met John Surtees in early 1960, and I knew that he was interested in getting into car racing as opposed to motorcycle racing. And I invited him down to test drive a Formula Junior car at Goodwood. And he was a natural. Right from the start, it was obvious that he was going to be able to handle four wheels as well as he could too.
Well, I think when John came into racing, we'd seen other motorcyclists come in. I mean, notably Jeff Duke, who was very good, very clean, but had never quite made it, not quite quick enough. We came in, we didn't know what to expect. But one only had to see John after a very short while, one realised one was dealing with a pretty wild guy. In fact, I always feel that if you were following John Surtees, you saw more of the front of the car than the back of it, because he was invariably sideways facing you. He wasn't dirty in any way, but he was all over the road. And there's quite a difference in doing it intentionally or doing it because you're trying to keep the car under control. He was very forceful, and interesting to me that if he appeared that if he would settle down, that he would be really quite sensational, which of course he did.
What are you actually taking out?
I tried to.
I understand you're taking a clean. No, you're driving a sports Aston, I think. Yeah. No, the sports Aston.
Ricordo un particolare che nel Gran Premio.
I remember a particular instance at the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa, when he took a very unusual line round the course, one which none of the other drivers took. It was very obviously a motorcyclist line, and everyone was watching him, rather surprised at his being the only one to do it. He took his own special motorcyclist line, and it worked fine for him.
The English summer does its best to silence the rare Surtees TS7, one of John's own designs. But Surtees' great contribution was always as a driver.
I think if you go back before the war, when auto unions were producing motor cars, the only people that could drive them were ex-motorcycle riders, because they had nobody else with any experience. They used to kill a few of them, but they used to also have world champions as well. But no, I think John fitted in very well.
I think there was a little resentment from the driver simply because he was a star attraction. He got all the publicity. I don't think that the other drivers liked that very much.
I suppose there might have been a spot of jealousy, but he was an unobtrusive and pleasant character who kept very much in the background, really. So, you know, he was quite popular.
John, I find John easy to get along with. A lot of people don't. I think John he's a funny bloke, you know, and I've always got along with him all right, and so I never found or felt any animosity, but there might have been, but I wouldn't necessarily have been aware of it.
All in all, they weren't a bad bunch of people. There's a lot more politics, mind you, in the car racing side, and perhaps one of the best preparations I had was growing up in the Italian side, relative to the intrigue and such like which went on. But this again was partly due to the fact that I didn't know anybody. Whereas I'd grown up with the motorcycle fraternity, in the car racing I'd never seen a car race until I decided to go racing, and then I saw one race. The next one I drove in.
Doing what? Do tell.
We were only doing sort of 5 touring laps
When is it, though? Do you know that?
Fun?
We're trying to find out a schedule.
In about 2 minutes.
Kidding. Have you got a helmet? Have you told us this?
At 1:45 in the schedule it is.
I'm going to go back and get my helmet.
Take it easy. Okay.
Oh, sure.
Attenzione.
I think the bike people and the car people are sort of a little bit separated for some reason, although probably a lot of the car people started off on bikes originally. I mean, I turned my nose up at cars when I used to ride motorbikes, you know, and they were the only thing for me. But as soon as I got interested in cars took over and I tended to forget bikes. But there is a division between the car and the bike people, I think, although we do bump into each other, you know, on boats going to meetings, and you have meetings with bikes and cars in Sweden and places like that, you know, you come across them. And I find the bike people are great fun.
The V6 of the 1963 Grand Prix Ferrari stutters in the damp.
During my period with Ferrari, I got involved in driving these fabulous 3-litre cars, which were a bit antiquated chassis-wise compared with things like the Lotus. The engine was temperamental with the direct injection, but we had some good drives, and I won my first Grand Prix.
And it was the highly successful combination of John Surtees and the Ferrari team which led to his becoming world champion racing driver in 1964.
E poi come uomo direi che è un uomo eccezionale. Io l'ho visto in questi giorni.
He's an exceptional man. I've watched him here over the last few days, still bursting with energy. The sort of chap who will test 10 bikes and then go out and try a Formula One car or a sports car as he is at the moment.
È veramente una persona eccezionale.
Eventually, John Surtees decided to run his own team. The special and complex demands of team management stretching his talents in new directions.
My team raced against John's for a number of years, and the thing that impressed me most was he was without any doubt the hardest working team manager Grand Prix racing has ever seen. He used to be involved in every aspect of building and preparing his racing cars, and I would say that without doubt he put more hours into his team than any other colleague who was racing against him at the time, including myself.
Team managership, yes, in theory I liked it. In practice, I didn't. I mainly like the mechanical side, and I enjoy being involved with the technical side. But I must say that the change in times we live in and people's attitudes and the change in attitudes as against my attitude and the way I approached driving and riding just didn't fit.
Just enough to knock the harshness off the note without making it too quiet to get away from the... Oh, it still sounds good, yeah. But you'll find it quiet after a genuine race.
Nothing else?
Surtees has probably raced a greater variety of thoroughbred machines than anyone. The wail of the 12-cylinder Ferrari P4 echoing John's period as a successful endurance racer from the Nürburgring to Monza.
Motorsport, both 2 and 4 wheels, is truly international and breaks down many barriers. I've been truly moved by the tremendous cooperation I've received from my many friends and rivals in bringing together all that is best in both machines and people, and in helping to turn the clock back and bring these 2 nostalgic days to the public.